Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sync B-Sides. It's been a while since we had our last episode because A, I've been busy, and B, no one wanted to come on our show. So we've got a really exciting one today. I've got Cassandra Ong from Otterhalf. So full disclosure, Otterhalf was a client of ours, is no longer a client of ours as of literally like a couple of days, so it's fine. And Cass has been in the marketing game for a very long time. I won't go too much into accolades, but she's worked as the head of growth, as the head of marketing at companies like Chope and many other big ones, foodpanda as well. And she is an extremely experienced marketer who started her own growth agency focused on, is it safe to say startups, or are we looking at, fast
Tech,
growth
tech,
companies?
tech.
Should we say startup? Tech companies. So we're not even going to pretend that they're startups. Tech companies looking to scale across, I would say, the world. Anyway, Cass, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on this. Very excited to be sharing some of the very maybe you know not so easy questions that Ting will be asking me today. But let's see how that goes. But yeah, I think according to what Ting said, so I am the founder of Otterhalf, a marketing agency, a very early stage marketing agency that specializes in growing tech companies. Why I say early stage is because we've only been around for like 3 months. I started in April, but very thankful that as
Mhm.
of today we already have 3 clients onboarded and counting. So yeah, I mean also maybe giving you guys a little bit of understanding about what Otter Half, why the name came about, because Otter and Half. Basically, it is a pun on other half. We want to be that partner, the marketing partner or business partner that tech businesses turn to for support. And why otters? Because otters are always seen to be very friendly. They are very cute, and I guess I mean, because how Otter Hub came about is also the founding team were being let go in our previous company, and we came together and started out this company. And a characteristic of otters are they tend to hunt in packs. So we really came together, and I think this is also a reflection of how otters behave. So yeah, that's the reason how Otter Hub came about.
Awesome. Okay, that was a lot better introduction than I gave you, Cass, and I apologize. You made me look bad on my own on the own podcast that we're doing. No worries, no worries. No, that was cool. That was really good. I'm glad you gave us a little bit of context as well because I was going to get into it a little bit later, but it's really good. I think we got it out at the start. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you said that you've only been in business for 3 months is really interesting because what I really want to know is because I already have my thoughts on this because I still remember when I started my agency. But what was the biggest misconception you had about starting an agency actually?
I okay, so I mean, I have an experience in marketing, of course. Thanks for the great introduction. For more than 12 years, but I've never ever worked in an agency before. I mean, so I've always been on the client side. So of course, diving into the unknown and plugging that courage, to just start something out on my own, I thought it would be extremely difficult. But I guess after talking to people, and I guess when we see the problem as an entirety, we'll think that, well, it's a big problem, it's a lot to cover. But then when we break it down to small different parts, like we and then taking baby steps, I realized that as I talk to founders or even marketers, right, we have covered our niche in tech marketing, which is not a lot of agencies forte today. And I guess biggest misconception for me is it will be extremely difficult. As I grew, as I start getting my clients, I realized if it is broken down into small bits, your problem becomes smaller, and you're able to overcome that. So I think that is one. I think the other bit about I mean, I also have another misconception, right? Because I thought that coming from, because I never had experience in agency, so I thought that I could break away from the
Mhm.
usual structure of an agency, because how agencies are, right? They have your account servicing,
Yeah,
they have your creative
I know.
director, and I wanted to mirror my agency to that of a startup, like how a tech startup is like. My head of partnerships, head of social media, head of SEO, right? But I realized very quickly after my first two clients that there is a need for client servicing. And I guess now I settled for a hybrid lah. I mean, I of course still mirror. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, but Cass, you haven't really done agency work. How do you know how it works? So I said, I think that can be an advantage, and that can also be a disadvantage, right? But I see it as an advantage, and I can be creative about how I structure my team. And I guess now I think bits of what work in agency, because they always say don't reinvent the wheel, and I settled for a hybrid. So yeah, I thought it would. Yeah, so I hope I answer your question, Ting.
Yeah. No, that was a really interesting answer because I think a lot of people always talk when we say misconception, right? And I've asked this question to many people, private conversations, interviews, and stuff, and everyone has a very similar kind of cookie cutter answer, which is like, I didn't realize how much work was involved and stuff like that. But when you really get to the nuts and bolts of it, running a business is a lot like, I don't know, I don't even know a really good analogy for it because every business is a little different. And every time the person who starts a business, especially the founding team or like your first team, your skill sets are different, right? So there are people who be really good at certain things, people that really, or maybe they're really specialized at what they do, but they're really terrible at everything else. Like organizational stuff, team management, client management, they're terrible. And it's not their fault. It was never their goal to be, that type of thing. But you need everybody to be kind of all around it, especially at the start. Because you're like, oh, I don't actually physically do not have time to do this. Can someone step in?
Yes.
And no one does. Right. So the misconception I had, at least from my side, was that people I assume that clients for the most part value outcome over everything else. If you can get them good results, that's all they cared about. What I found out the very hard way is they care about a lot of things, outcome being a really important part of it, but there's also a ton of really important parts of it that have nothing to do with outcome and all about basically making them feel good. And so like you said, like I pushed into having client management, some form of client management as well, very early on after I realized that I was the one making the mistake. I mean, okay, so like tagging onto that, right? Because now that you said you've never been in agencies, now that you're on the other side of the fence, right? What's the kind of the biggest change to the way that you actually do your work? Because I mean, I've been both. I've been in house and I've been agency. I've been both sides. There's a massive gulf. I'll just give you kind of lay the premise for you. When I was working in house at most companies, I wouldn't say all, but most companies I worked in house. I was very efficient, but at the same time, extremely inefficient with the things that I was doing. Because I was doing a lot of things that weren't really, I would say, necessary. It was just company structure kind of forced you to do that. And then I felt like, okay, cool. I've actually done all the important work. It's 11 a.m. I've got nothing else to do, but I've just got to sit in for like 7 meetings now in a row that I've got nothing to do with. And that's how I felt. And so which is why I kind of went back to agency later on, because I was like, I feel I and this is going to sound horrible, and I hope people take it the wrong way, but I felt like I was getting dumber because I was not challenged in any way at all. And that's not to knock on, because I've seen in-house agencies, in-house teams do amazing stuff, but when you go to a slightly established company or you go to a company that has a very set structure, yeah, you're not breaking the mold. You to break the mold, you have to, I don't know, you have to like change everything from top down, and the marketing's in the middle somewhere. So yeah, sorry, long-winded way of asking. What was like, how did you change the way
Saying
you work?
firstly, you have to give yourself more credit for being efficient, Like 11 a.m. and you finish your work, well, that's efficiency, okay?
That was really like I used to do like 10 times, like not even exaggerate, 10 times
Yeah.
the amount of work in agency. So I was
I can
very
feel you though,
surprised.
because I also experienced somewhat similar when I was in a big organization like Tripadvisor. And I think the effect of it was also COVID, right? And I was there during COVID as well. And
Yeah.
of course, a lot of work was pivoted to market to domestic travelers instead of international travelers. And then, there's only a limit because no budget, right? So there's only a limit to the kind of marketing you can do, which is usually your usual email marketing, right? Because these are generally very cost efficient ways. But anyway, okay. So I can relate. I can
Yeah.
relate. But I guess what has been the biggest change to the way I work, and I think I'm just going to I mean, I just gonna put in context. I'm gonna relate my work to the work that I did in startups. Basically, foodpanda and Chope. So what I realized, having been in this for 3-4 months already, is that in house you actually do a lot of execution work. Like you really got no time to think for the business, strategize for the business. I mean, you do, but very, very pockets of time, right? Because you are put into all sorts of meetings, right? Like, and then you just need to solve
Yeah.
problems, right? You do a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
execution
Yeah.
work, and I can say for really foodpanda and Chope, really, I'm really spend 98% of my time. I get 98% of my time doing execution, and also very interestingly, recently when I was pitching to a fintech as well as an edutech company, two potential clients, then they asked me because I pitch my ideas, and then they say, okay, Cass, you know what? What's the difference between hiring you and getting my people to do? Like, what's the difference? And then I told them, I was in your shoes before. I was the head of marketing of Chope and foodpanda, and of course growth in senior growth marketing manager in Tripadvisor. I realized that when I was in a startup or early stage slash growth stage, like, as long as there's pressure to grow, I spend a lot of my time
Yeah.
executing and I don't think. And it's tough, right? I mean, if you want to do thinking work like strategizing, you can, but it's going to be out of your. By the time I finish my work, it's right 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and then you still have to go and think about things. So I guess in an agency, on the reverse, on the contrary, I actually really do a lot of strategy work. I think for my clients, I get access to their data, of course, sign NDA lah. I get access to their data, and I try to see, which are some of the things that they can optimize, which function that they can do better, or very good ROI, and which are the areas that they can double down on. And it's very exciting for me because I see like, wow, actually this company is doing really well, but how can they be better? What kind of effect they can provide to I mean for that's in line with their direction or business goals, right? So I think that's one biggest change. In fact, previously last time I only set aside maybe one day, half a day to a day to do focus work. But now in an agency, I actually set aside 2 days to do focus work. And the rest of the days are really stakeholder slash project management kind of work lah, because you have clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest change I realized.
No, that definitely makes sense because I think what you're doing now is utilization of your time, right? It's different when you're an agency, when you're in in-house. It's kind of how you utilize your time in the best way. I can relate. I can relate. I think for me it was a little different given the fact that when I first started, I had a team of one person. That one person was me.
Okay.
Then I had it. Then I had an intern. Then I had an intern, and that guy he's a really good guy. Like I actually very fond of him. He hates everybody. I'm very fond of him, but like he was like, this is what I can do, and I don't want to talk to people. I'm like, all right, that I can't use you for a lot of things, but he was very good at the things he could do, right? And so he's a legend in the company because no one has ever met him. I'm the only person, and I've actually never
Oh,
met him. I've spoken to him, and like he wouldn't turn on his camera, and he just hated people, but he got paid, and he did the work reasonably well for an intern. So I was like very pleased with what I was able to find, and he's kind of been the blueprint for how we hire people as well in the company, which is we look for people that have that little bit of odd quirkiness, but they kind of balance that out with also
mm,
being really good at something. And the reason that people don't want to hire them is because they're really odd. I wouldn't say everyone in my team is like that, but there's a little bit of that oddness that comes
okay.
out, I think, and which is good. I mean, it's good. Like we call them diamonds in the rough. Other people would call them, they didn't make the pile, so they didn't make the inbox. But I mean, okay, I want to kind of come back to what you were saying as well, because when you're talking about, the difference in styles of how we work in house and how we work in agency, right? Because I think that my misconception before when I was working in agency, before I went in house, was that in-house people relied too heavily on agencies, and agency people were kind of the cream of the crop. And it was a misconception I had, and I'm talking when I was in my early 20s. Yeah. Then I went in-house and I saw, okay, there's a lot of times agencies do jack all, like literally they're just arms and legs that you hire slightly cheaper than full-time staff, right? So I was like, okay, it balances out really well. what if you like to look at your time spent when you're working, at Chope, Tripadvisor, all those guys, foodpanda, right? What were some of the best lessons that you actually learned from like running those teams and like really, like you said, executing these massive campaigns, because they're very big campaigns.
Okay, I guess it boils. In fact, what I'm going to share is not very marketing related. It's actually a bit more op related. The best lessons are, I guess, people is the most. I mean, people to me they are really important, right? Because if there's no great people, then
Yeah.
it's very tough to do my work, of course. So my learnings really is to get people with the right attitude, ideally the right skills, who believe in your values. I think they are the people
Okay.
that can help to grow the business. I mean, why I say ideally the right skills, because for me, I'm not one who is very hard up on, you need to have at least a marketing degree, or even you need to have at least like, I mean, even you need to have at least like X years of experience in marketing for a role. As long as you have a great attitude, you are willing to roll up your sleeves to get things done. Great, and you believe in our values, right? I think you will be. For me, I think so far this approach hasn't failed me in hiring my people. So I guess people management, of course, people management is one lesson that I've always been learning, still learning today. I think another one is also direction, right? I mean, if if you do not have a very clear direction on where the business is growing, regardless of how stellar your team is, I mean, maybe you're great at hiring, right? Or
I'm really
please
bad
don't
at
be
that. So
humble.
I'll just say that.
They won't stick around for long. That's for sure, and I've seen it
Yeah.
in the companies that I work for. I mean, and in even you're able to like afford them, or bump up their pay, as long as there's no direction, because it cascade down. No, that lack of direction, messy, frustration, and yeah, and so they won't stick around for long. So I guess having a clear direction is also important. I think the last bit is you need to have clear communication and provide instant feedback. I guess being in Asian companies, or traditional Asian companies. Okay, I shouldn't generalize. Sorry. It's always you try to be nice. You try to like okay, this person is not doing a good job, but let's give him or her a second chance, right? You try to be nice about it. But I've always referred to, I'm not sure whether you know of this author called Brene Brown. I mean, what she said about being clear is
Yeah.
kind and being unclear is unkind. I think I relate a lot to it also, because a lot of people, I guess, fall under the category of being nice, right? But they may not be kind. An example, not providing instant feedback to somebody who you think is not doing a very good job. May be a nice thing to do, but it's not a kind thing to do, because ultimately that effect would it would be bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how you affect internally, and you're not trying to solve a problem, and in the end, result the impact, the result wouldn't be great. So yeah, I guess that is, I always refer to that lah. And of course, I mean, I'm also reading the book Radical Candor, about saying what you think while also giving a damn about the people you're saying it to, right?
Oh, we follow that. We follow that in the company. Radical candor is a huge part of how we actually provide feedback in the company, because ruinous empathy is the worst thing that you can do, and it's a really bad trait in, and I'll use your words, traditional
Yes.
Asian companies. It's a very bad trait that they have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. So we follow. So radical candor is a big thing. Everyone that comes in the company, we have to do like a mini workshop on what radical candor is, because no one knows. And then we're going to explain to them, you're going to hear some things that you think are going to be harsh, but they're not meant to be harsh. They're meant to give you honest feedback that's going to guide you in the
Yeah.
right direction. And you get to do the same to us, even me, even anyone else in the company, regardless of whether we look upset or not, you get to say that, right? And you
Yeah.
can't hold it against you. So yeah, no, I see that. That's actually a really interesting thing that you're looking at, because
Yes.
oddly enough, I think a lot of people forget that if you put in the effort to give people like the tools in
Yeah.
order for them to succeed, by it's not about individually like spending, I'll spend 6 hours with you every week. It's more here's a platform and here's a tool. There are tools for you to succeed. For the most part, most people are going to do pretty well. I think it's just that when people get too big, or when you kind of lose sight of the goal, as you mentioned, having a clear
Yeah.
goal, having a clear story, and having a clear plan, you lose
Yeah.
sight of a lot of these other things. And I couldn't agree with you more. You're kind of mirroring a little bit of like what we like the challenges we faced, also like some of the lessons we learned when we were starting out as well. Maybe it's the same. Maybe everybody has these same
Yeah,
issues we just don't
maybe.
talk about.
Okay. But that's, mm,
One thing I love actually asking experienced marketers such as yourself, especially, is marketing has changed so much. So if I look at PR and content, we've changed. Like it has changed so much. But if you, I swear to you, and this always irritates a lot of people in my industry. If you go and talk to the old heads, so the people from like from far before, right? They will say that, oh no, it's almost the same, like just a few media change here. No, it's completely changed. People refuse to admit that PR is completely done, completely flipped, right? For you, in your experience, since you've been working in marketing for many years, like what has been like the biggest leaps of the biggest changes you've seen? I know it's a very broad question, so feel free to like narrow that down into
I have to say
specifics if you
nothing
want.
because I can't reveal my age thing.
In the last 3 years that you've been in
Okay, never mind.
marketing since
I mean,
university.
it's been 12 years, right? Ever since I graduated. I guess there are two bits of things that I really saw changed. The huge, so more, so the huge emphasis on offline previously, offline marketing, and now huge
Mhm.
emphasis in online.
Yeah.
Right, and because I remember when I just started out, and my first job was in Fai's organization. It's a real private real estate company. It's
Oh
really,
wow. Okay.
they were
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
so well then. I remember the ads, well, the marketing that they were doing were really like traditional marketing, right? Like print ad, Straits Times full page, first page,
Mhm.
and this all cost a bomb, right? Mm, Out of home, magazines, right? And these were all like very sought after marketing collaterals, right? Or even channels. But now I really think it has evolved. I guess also accelerated, evolved to digital marketing, but accelerated especially during COVID, right? Because market companies that previously were
Mhm.
like, okay, trying a little bit, dabbling a little bit into digital marketing, and then they were forced to dabble a lot into marketing, into digital marketing, because of everyone was forced to stay at home, right? So they had to experiment with that. But yeah, what I've been observing is also digital ads, short form videos, UGC content, user generated content. I promise I'm not biased because I came from Tripadvisor, but I really see that shift towards UGC content. They're all really getting a lot of traction. Also very interestingly, and I guess also because of the niche that I am right now in terms of tag marketing, right? They won't tell me like, hey Cass, I want to give you X dollars, help me to do offline ads, help me to do out of home. No, they will be like, Cass, I give you
Mhm.
X dollars. Can you help me to come up with a plan for digital buy? So far I haven't really come across any, and of course maybe I should talk to more clients, bigger ones probably. But so far I really haven't come across any that like, hey, I have a lot of budget for offline. Can you please provide me with a proposal? No. Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah. I saw there's a someone told me this, and I'm trying to remember who it is, so I'm struggling with the name. But basically, what they said was offline. Well, offline is still doing okay, but it is now the purchases for offline are very specific to companies that are looking to hit either very specific stakeholders, drivers, slightly older folks, or really targeted offline, people who literally put it on like mailboxes and stuff like that. So really, really specific, or companies that are looking to use that as
Mm,
a brand awareness tool to complement
yeah.
their digital marketing. So they do really targeted geo map stuff, and then they pump banner ads around there, and like there's
Yeah.
the billboards and everything, and apparently it really works. And but Only
Yes,
bigger
bigger
brands can do
brands.
that because it's really, really it's cost restrictive. But it's also, so oddly enough, it's also like what I saw a lot of companies that technically I wouldn't even think want to do it because they're fully digital. They're doing it too. They're so like Grab did it really aggressively in Malaysia. I don't know if they did it in Singapore, but they did it very aggressively in
Mm,
Malaysia and Indonesia as well, where they would just run really specific ad campaigns for certain areas and then pump
yeah.
billboards everywhere around there. It was apparently I don't know for a fact, but I
But
think it was
Grab
quite
also had the
effective.
money, right? To pump ads everywhere
Yes,
because
yeah, yeah,
offline is expensive. Yeah, so yeah.
yeah. They did,
So I
they
think yeah,
did,
lah,
they
I think
did.
that's the biggest change,
Now,
lah. I guess. I mean, I do have another one. I also do see a lot of brand marketing work transit into not really transit, but more last time there's a lot of focus on brand marketing, but now there's a lot of focus on growth performance marketing, right? Because previously I think only big like FMCGs or even big organizations, when you do brand marketing work, they can only measure it based on the pre and post brand campaign sentiment, right? To see whether before you
yeah,
do the brand marketing, before you branding work, what was the sentiment? After, what was that increase? And these are only things that companies with budget can do. So even if you are a small company and
yeah,
you do this kind of brand marketing work, it's very tough to measure, especially if it's like offline stuff. But now I think with a lot of performance marketing, growth marketing campaigns that marketers launch, the feedback is almost instant, right? I can just put in X dollars in Google Ads or even Facebook or IG or even TikTok for that matter, and I can get the feedback immediately because I know, okay, what's your cost per click, what's your cost per acquisition, right? And I can immediately optimize. So I think that's also another change in marketing ever since I started.
yeah. Brand awareness and brand marketing in general is technically, I wouldn't say it's dying. I just think it's going through a pivot right now because, okay, one of my struggles has always been with marketers and with comms people. So specifically brand, not performance,
Yeah.
specifically on the brand side, right? Has always been that everyone tried to kind of stay away from the terrible sales thing. Like, are we driving revenue? Are we a cost center or are we
Yeah.
a revenue generator, right? And PR is like the worst at this because every time someone says like, we need more sales, and PR people are like, whoa, 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 you know what we do, and then they run away from it. But my entire thing is, if because what we sell is the fact that the more people know you, the more likely they're going to buy something from you. But we don't want to peg anything to that. So we don't want any of the risk, but
Yeah.
we want all the reward, right? But what I started to do was, and we measured this for a few clients, the ones that were nice enough to share with us some data, was that they were already running digital campaigns, paid ads, not really big ones, say about 10K a month, which is decent size for a small company. And then they said, hey, can we do a PR campaign because we want to like reach out to investors and stuff. And when we were running the campaign, they mentioned that they're running paid advertisements. And I said, can I see your cost of
Mm,
acquisition pre and post? So let's look at it 6 months before and let's look at the 3 to 4 months that we
mm,
run the PR
mm.
campaign. What happened? And I think from month 2, 3, 4, and then actually a month after we finished, we were seeing as high as a 30% reduction in
Mm.
cost of acquisition because brand awareness was going up. And we actually got them back as a client. It was really cool. I wasn't even trying to sell them anything. I just really wanted to see the data. But they came back because they're like, wait, you saved us 30% in cost of acquisition. And then the first thing that happened. Then we started doing this more and more. I think the more realistic number is about 15, is about half of that. But if you're really good at digital ads and you're really good at Google ads, like any sort of Google ads or anything like that, PR or brand marketing is really important because that'll be what will drive down cost of acquisition more
Mm.
organically because you can optimize at some point. Optimization is going
Yeah.
to hit a ceiling, but then branding is actually going to help with reducing cost of acquisition. Because I mean, Airbnb is kind of an amazing example. Even though I'm not a massive fan of
Mm.
Airbnb, it's just terrible service. But they basically stopped performance
Yeah.
marketing for some time. And again, they can do it because I mean it is Airbnb, right? It's different. It's a different beast. I don't think anyone else should stop performance marketing, but it was more of they showed the value of what branding and what organic leads and
Yeah,
organic
I,
lead
I
generation.
I think that's actually a very good measure. Cost of acquisition before and after PR, but the only variable has to be PR. Then you are able to measure. Okay.
Yes, 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 and so it's a lot easier to measure with like smaller
Mm,
companies, startups, and people that they're in stage of growth, but they also don't have 2 million to
yeah.
like burn, right? If they have if because if you add if they can spend this amount of dollars and they're like, okay, cool, it's money that I burned for branding, but then I said, hey, you actually saved $60,000 on acquisition over the same period, then
Yeah.
it's for them it's a no brainer. They're like, okay, cool, I'm making money and I'm getting these intangible benefits as well. So I mean that's kind of how I see it, but I might be in the minority here a little bit because I always get into I wouldn't say arguments, but there are disagreements that I've had with people in my industry, particularly because no one wants to be pegged to anything that is immeasurable. Like really, no one really wants to be pegged to anything that's measurable. All right. I won't take too much of your time, Cassandra, because I think we actually had a really good discussion that's taking up a little bit more time. But maybe I can ask one last question. And this is really kind of the takeaway that I want people listening to. Like, do you have any growth tips and tricks for like, say, tech companies, startups, people that are looking to grow?
Yes. I would say so. I think I'll just probably provide recommendations or like tips for early stage and growth stage startups. I think for early
Mhm.
stage companies tend to want to reserve cash. Don't spend money in brand marketing. Trust me, don't. Leverage on your connections and network to drive brand awareness. And I hope and really with little or no ad spend. I know that's like going against what I'm trying to sell, right? Because technically, I would want companies to invest in marketing work or even ads in Otterhalf. But I think for the benefit of really early stage company, don't do that. Leverage on your connections. I think one thing that I did when I was at foodpanda was really, and mind you, the time foodpanda was really, I think I was there and celebrated their second or third birthday. Still the orange branding, and I was trying to
Mhm.
leverage on the restaurants that we had, and again, association with food delivery with foodpanda is low. Everyone think when they think about food delivery, they think about McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Canadian Pizza. Really, that was the dinosaur era.
Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Yeah,
I
and
get it.
and
I get
we
it.
just really wanted to tap on our restaurants, right? I mean, since we are really working with them, why not? Then and we managed to launch a offline brand awareness campaign, putting stickers. It may seem like a really a no brainer like right now, but at that point in time, very few companies apart from Tripadvisor, was doing it. So yes, after that, of course, in we also work with we also do activated our own digital ad channels to drive the usual growth lah. But what I also realized is there was also a peak in delivery order count after we launched that campaign. So I think on average 15 to 25% month-on-month growth. But of course, Foodpanda then was under Rocket Internet Group, so we had quite a bit of money to spend. But that being said, a lot of people also knew us, right? A lot of came to us and like, hey, I knew you through this particular restaurant. I saw you, and that was where the leads came in. So this, I think, early stage really reserved cash, try to leverage, on what you have, your network, drive brand awareness, whether or not it's like partnership, co-marketing partnerships, just tap onto other people's or your connections network to drive growth. Tip is mainly for growth stage startups. I think by then you would have a decent user base. My recommendation is really to run internal campaigns, A/B test, and optimize. Like constantly test so that you can reiterate and optimize. I I I I I mean, I do have an example though. On because when I was at Chope, when I joined, it was I think they were launching campaigns once every a few months, and I just wanted doing marketing, you can either have quantity or you have quality. You go wide or you go deep, right? And I just thought, okay, let's try with the quantity bit because at that point in time we were still trying to figure it out, what works and what didn't. And I think our breakthrough was having launched this Korean drama inspired video that garnered us 1.2 million views in 2 months, and that was actually before TikTok ever even came to the picture. So yeah, and I think from that video, it was meant to be a funny video, and I also remember very vividly that Hosen Leong, I mean, everyone knows that he's a comedian in Singapore, right? He commented and said it was funny, and so I was like, wow, that is really. I mean, that's a feat by itself, right? But anyway, because of that video, we saw our ad downloads also increase because the video kind of the CTA is to download the app. So we saw the app download increase by more than 25% month on month, and that's actually the 4 times the average. So yeah, just really keep trying, keep testing, keep optimizing, and one day that would be a breakthrough.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. I think that's really cool because it's always been difficult, at least for a lot of people, to kind of share tips that make sense or tips that they can relate to real experiences that they've had. Because I think a lot of people like to share these really short, sharp tips that, for the most part, don't make any sense. So I kind of appreciate when someone actually brings it
Yeah.
into like a real example of how things work. Right. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, Cass, because I know that we've had technical issues as well, and you've been extremely patient with me. So why don't you tell the people how they can
You
actually
can
find
head
you and reach out
over
to you?
to, I mean, if what I mentioned today is of any interest, and you would like to have a conversation with me, you can head over to www.otterhalf, otterhalf.co, and you can actually book a chat with myself. Yeah.
Awesome, Cass. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, thanks for listening in, everybody. So if you want to hear and see more great content from us, do visit all our channels on social media. You can find us on YouTube at SyncPR. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're not on TikTok. That's tough, but we will eventually be there one day. All right, thanks, everybody.